And I will go now to the pragmatists, and we'll assign to them a green. Turning into a square here. Pragmatists, for the most part, are more naturalistic in their philosophical approach, like the realists are. Again, there are some of the pragmatists, William James is an example here, who are more religion-friendly, and so there is some variation among the pragmatists here, but nonetheless, the pragmatists are explicitly tilting strongly toward naturalistic understandings of the universe. The pragmatists are typically opponents of faith, typically opponents of mysticism. Again, William James is an exception here, his being an advocate of a certain kind of faith under certain circumstances. But for the most part, what you find is that the pragmatists are strong advocates of an empirical, a reason-based approach to epistemology. But what differentiates them strongly from the realists is that they are not as gung-ho about the powers of reason, or they're not as sold on our capacity, the capacity of our reason to come to understand general and universal truths about the nature of the world. And so while they tend to be advocates of reason, they have a typically healthy dose of skepticism or fallibilism about the powers of reason built into them, and so I'll put them a little further along the spectrum this way. So they will tend to live on that spectrum there. The pragmatists, in terms of their human nature, again, there's quite a range here, and some of them tend toward a more reductive materialist approach, some tend to a more integrationist approach. I'm not aware of any pragmatists who tilt strongly toward a dualistic account of human beings. The ones that I'm familiar with are in this area here. In the ethics of pragmatists, most of the pragmatists are somewhere in the area of emphasizing the individual and the individual's pursuit of his or her interests. Some of them are more strongly emphasizing the social and the communal. In the case, for example, of William James, James, I think, tilts a little more strongly in this direction here. John Dewey, another major pragmatist, tilts more strongly in this direction here. So there's a range in this part of the spectrum, right, as well. All right, let's now turn to behaviorism, and I will assign the behaviorists orange. Behaviorists, metaphysically, are ruthlessly naturalistic, all of the major ones. I don't believe there are any of the major behaviorists who have any sympathy or leanings toward religious or idealistic accounts of the universe, so I put them at the far end of the spectrum here. In their advocacy, epistemologically, they are gung-ho advocates of a very strong empirical observation, experiment-based scientific method. Everything has to be run through that epistemological orientation. In their view of human nature, the behaviorists rather are strongly materialistic, are seeing the human being as explicable totally in terms of being a biological system that is very malleable by physical environmental circumstances. When we turn to the ethics issues, the behaviorists then become complicated. And one of the reasons why it becomes complicated, I'm going to pause at this moment here for a little sidebar, is to say that one of the implications for the behaviorist view of epistemology is that any talk about normative issues, about values, about the meaning of life and so forth, all of that is, from their perspective, unscientific. It's not something that you can capture in a test tube. You can't run an experiment on it. And so one of the mainstream official behaviorist positions is to say that there is no such thing as a science of ethics or even a discipline of ethics. And so from their perspective, they would just deny that there is any such thing here. So I will put an X over here off the line as representing one possible approach behavioristically. One qualification I can add at this point, though, about the behaviorists is that, well, I think it's fair to say that officially they don't believe as a matter of philosophical principle, that ethics is a real discipline here. As a matter of practice, many of the behaviorists will stake out various normative positions or come to have certain ethical values and advocate them. So I'll mention B.F. Skinner as an example here. In one of his works he did called Walden II, design what he took to be an ideal society, and his ideal society has all kinds of values built into it in his calling it an ideal society. And as it happens, it's a fairly kind of authoritarian, communally based society. So I'll put a broken lines box in this case to represent Skinner in practice on that part of the ethics spectrum behavioristically.